All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My little video didn't play, so whatever. Uh, it's good to have you guys with us tonight. Tonight, I have a very special guest. And the reason I say that is because he's legitimately known as a 10th Amendment hero. He is responsible for what I would say is, if not the single biggest, one of the biggest wins for constitutional sheriffs, but in general, the 10th Amendment ever. His name is Sheriff Mack, Richard Mack. He's a former Arizona sheriff. He's known for winning a landmark 97 Supreme Court case, Prenz v. United States. It was consolidated, Prenz/Mack v. United States. It ruled that the federal government cannot command state officials to perform background checks on handgun buyers. The 5-4 decision, which was really close, bolstered 10th Amendment states' rights, prohibiting commandeering of local law enforcement. If you guys have been watching the channel for any length of time, you guys know I'm a huge proponent of local versus state/federal. It challenged remember the Brady bill, guys, the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 93. It argued that federal mandates facing local sheriffs to conduct gun purchase background checks were unconstitutional. And they ruled in favor of Prenz Mack and told the government, you can't do that. So he then went on to do a lot of other stuff, including founding CSPOA, which I will let him tell you guys about, but it's a critical organization that builds on the foundation of that key win. So without further ado, welcome Sheriff Mack.
Dion, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate that introduction. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. There we go. So it's good to have a minute to talk to you, and you've obviously been through a lot. You've been around a minute, but me too. I didn't do quite as much as you have, though. So that had to be I would say a pivotal turning point, is when that decision was handed down.
Oh, yeah, to say the least. It 9 months before that, 8-9 months before that, I lost my re-election bid, my third election. Oh, wow. And it was all about this case. People got sick and tired of it. It got a lot of press. I was so surprised after I did a local radio show in Safford, Arizona on KATO, which I grew up with, that station. And the announcer says, hey, Sheriff, do you want to come on my show today? I don't have much going on. Do you have anything going on? And I said, yeah, the Brady bill. And I just come back from Phoenix from a meeting where the BATF gave us a 25-page document detailing our marching orders as to how we had to enforce this federal mandate. Right. I was going to say federal law, but it's not law because it wasn't constitutional. It was what the founding fathers said in the Declaration of Independence. They called stuff like this pretended legislation, because that's all it was. Yeah. And so when I got back and he said that, I said, let's do it. We talked about it, and I told him my concerns. He put it out on the AP Wire, and we took 300 calls the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We had to get we had to get a new line that I paid for with my own money. We had to get a new line into the sheriff's office, and that was dedicated to the Brady bill.
Yeah.
Now, I was the only sheriff in the United States of America to do this until Sheriff Prince joined 6 weeks later. But I was really shocked that the other sheriffs in Arizona didn't want to do this. These were good people, especially Coconino County Sheriff Joe Richards. I really thought that he would just say, no, there's no way we can do this. The other seasoned sheriffs were cussing like a storm. They hated every bit of it, especially the threat that we were threatened with arrest if we failed to comply. I mean, how significant is that?
That's crazy.
The federal government tells us we have to work for them for free, and if we don't, we could face a year in prison. So I mean, it was so outlandish and so outrageous and crazy. And all the way home, I was just brooding and brooding and brooding. And I was upset with the other sheriffs. They kept saying when it was their turn to talk about it, after they stopped cussing and throwing all the F-bombs, they said, well, you can't fight City Hall. And I said, who wants you to believe that? City Hall, And so I said, I just told them, look, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do because I don't want to be arrested, but I'm going to tell all of you right now, I am not doing this. I'm not going to do it. And so when I drove up in my driveway at my home, it hit me that you're going to sue your own government. Now, I'm of the impression now, all that I've learned since then and during that major lawsuit for 3.5 years, by the time it went to the district court, circuit court, and then the U.S. Supreme Court, I learned that the sheriffs don't have to sue or go to court in order to keep our oath of office. And that's even what Jefferson said. We shouldn't have to, every time there's an abuse of the federal government, we shouldn't have to go to a lengthy trial and court system to try to ask permission to keep our oath and to protect our people.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
It's called state nullification, and it's also called sheriff nullification. We all should have just said no. If the sheriffs of Arizona, if 10 of us would have just said, no, we're not doing this, and told the BATF, tell your bosses, we're not doing it, and tell them to stay the hell out of here. So, but no, it didn't happen. So I was all alone. I didn't think there was anything else I could do. And then I was thrilled when Sheriff Prince joined the case. And then after that, 5 other sheriffs across the country. So 7 sheriffs out of 3,086.
That's embarrassing.
Hit this fight. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And I had hoped, so draw a little line there. We saw the same thing under the COVID mandates where sheriffs, just like you said, they handed down these mandates, which are not laws. Nope. And they said, oh yeah, okay, absolutely. No one, I won't say no one, a number of people.
No, I will tell you, there were over 500 sheriffs nationwide who refused to enforce the mandates. Yeah, there were over, but that's still only about 16-17%.
Right.
And it's better, a lot more.
Yeah, it's better than
and maybe my statistics were wrong, but I'm pretty sure I was darn close the way I figured it. There were actually about 25 in California, and not all of them came out and did a big press conference about it. A lot of them just did it, told their deputies and say, we're not going to do this, and don't go arresting people. And this was the best response I heard of. If a store or grocery store gets mad at someone for not wearing a mask, mm-hmm. and they call us to go there, just tell the store clerks, we're not arresting people for not wearing masks. But if you want to kick somebody out, there's nothing we can do about that. If you want them removed, we'll remove them. But because it's their property, it's not our property, mm-hmm. and if they don't want the people in there, then it's their property, and that supersedes any of this. And so we would just tell people, we recommended that sheriffs do this, and I heard that some sheriffs were doing it, that I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And then that person says, what do I do for groceries? And I said, well, hurry up and pay them and then leave, stuff like that. But there was one lady who just put extra money, her cash, on the counter and left with her groceries and didn't wait, just took it, left the money and left. And she left more than enough to pay for. So, this is how it should have been, if at all. But I really think that the sheriffs who told the stores, we're not going to arrest people for wearing a mask, I think a lot of the store owners backed off, but I did hear of that a little bit.
Yeah.
But wait. The worst thing, though, that happened during COVID is that there were a few sheriffs and state police that arrested pastors for having church. That was the worst thing ever. Yes.
I agree. It's people draw the line to 1984 and dystopian, and they're not wholly wrong, but we've encouraged, or I should say, we've been gaslighted for this fear culture. I mean, everything is the end of the world.
Yeah.
So people kind of get numb to it.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, there are a number of circumstances, like, for example, the Brady Bill, that just incredibly overstepped bounds and changed laws, changed rules, and obviously infringed upon the Second Amendment, which should have been something that was not allowed.
Yeah.
And you were one of the
and you were right. We sued on the 10th Amendment, but we saved the Second Amendment with the 10th.
Right. Agreed. And it's fundamental, and it really is mind-blowing and a little humbling how intelligent the founding fathers were, the way that they organized the amendments in order to support each other.
Oh yeah, totally. And the 10th was in the right spot. It was like it was batting cleanup. And it basically said this: just in case you think we forgot something, you can't do that either.
Right.
Because this is the biggest thing about the 10th Amendment. It forbids the federal government from aggrandizing its own power. Ever. They cannot take power that is not in the Constitution specifically delegated to them. And they've stolen and usurped over 1,000 different powers. They've even made some up and, oh yeah, that's us. Yeah, we take them. No.
Right. So you said you started receiving a host of phone calls after your radio appearance. Would you say that it was predominantly positive, or were there a bunch of people that were like, "Oh,
no, that was just the media. The 300 calls was just media.
Oh, wanting to interview and get
so
quotes.
That's why. But and the media, they're always positive when they call the first time, and then you do the interview, and then you find out that they're a complete jackass, and wanted their own. Yeah, there was one guy out of Colorado that we got on. I got on with him on a radio show, and all he was doing is trying to gotcha, and he wouldn't let me answer, because if anybody will let me answer, it's no such thing as a gotcha, because I'm ready and I know what I'm talking about, and it was my case, and so, but most of them, even the jerks like CNN and a few others, they'd still let me give my answer. They would manipulate it afterwards, whatnot, but they would still let me answer. And then there were some great ones like Australia, London, Canada, and a reporter actually came from New York City from Japan News. He was assigned to New York City, but he came and he couldn't hardly speak any English. And it just so happened that the day he came to my office, that we were having firearms training.
Oh.
And so I spent a couple hours with him in my office. And, hey, I got to go qualify in firearms. You want to come? And he did. And then we asked him if he wanted to shoot, and he got a real scared look on his face. I said, no, it's okay. You can shoot. And then we came back to the police station. Then you know what he asked me?
What?
He said, Sheriff, arrest me for touching gun. He thought we set him up to be arrested.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't touch a gun in Japan. He said, he even told me after we're finished, and I said, no, we don't arrest. We wouldn't do that. We don't arrest people for touching a gun. And I wouldn't tell you to touch a gun. And then, but it's the only time in his life he ever touched a gun. And he thought we were going to set him up and arrest him. Yeah. We don't do that in America. Yeah. This is guaranteed in the Constitution that I already read to him, right out of the Constitution. But it really saddened me to see that he was that afraid and distrusting of government.
Yeah, it's very disheartening too when you realize that the United States is the last real bastion of freedom in many regards, but particularly when it comes to the right to defend ourselves, our home, and the people around us. And when stories like that you realize that there's a reason why the Second Amendment, the right to self-defense, and the legal framework surrounding it is under such heavy attack, because they have to take away your ability to defend yourself if they want to control you.
Yeah, and the Democrats, of course, have been trying to destroy that right for a long time. But even they admit that you can't abolish the Second Amendment. And so what do? They pass gun control laws anyway.
Yep.
And by their action, they know we can't abolish the Second Amendment. So if they really were serious about gun control, they would have to abolish the Second Amendment first, but they won't. And even then, my answer to them would be, the Second Amendment didn't give us that right. God Almighty gave me that right when I was born. They said, you mean, are you kidding? You mean God gave you a right to own a gun? I said, God gave me the right to self-defense. Mm-hmm. And what tool I choose is up to me. And I said, but my right to self-defense came from nature or nature's law, the God of nature and nature's law. And so you can't deny that. And they can't, but the atheists and Democrats will deny that. They say, well, we're going to make our world safer and make sure that the law-abiding citizens of this country are no longer allowed to have guns. And so I said, it's still against the law, whether you like it or not. Gun control in the United States of America is against the law, and you are breaking the law. So,
yeah, and I wish more people would understand that and recognize. And fortunately, we have a Supreme Court now that seems and sounds like it's starting to get on board and understand at least the majority thereof. Yeah. But so what can people do today? Because the federal government isn't going to stop infringing. That's just what it does. That's the nature of the now, massive beast. Tell me about the organization that you founded.
Well, we want everyone, the solution is to become a member of the CSPOA. And it stands for Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. So people go, well, I'm not a sheriff and I'm not a peace officer. You're the sheriff's boss, and we need you on board, and you've got to be a part of this. And Jefferson warned us that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. That's what we offer you, a chance to join us in the holy cause of liberty. And so go to CSPOA.org. And once you become a member of our CSPOA posse, we train with you every Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we have an hour training to make sure that you know how to work with your sheriff. And therein lies the solution that you were asking about, Dion. The solution is that we, the people, working with the chief law enforcement officer in every county in this country, your sheriff, to do what Madison said, erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national authority. And that's what we teach you to do. Our Supreme Court case totally backs that up. Mm-hmm. Scalia wrote the decision. He actually said, he quoted Federalist 51, hence a double security arises to the rights of the people when the different governments control each other. And you see, folks, the counties are different governments. The sheriff is in charge of a different government. And when he sees someone in the federal government or state government or local doing something contrary to the Constitution, it's our job with him to defend those rights and to make sure that immediate action is taken against the perpetrators. Doesn't matter who they are or what branch of government they come from. If they're violating the Constitution, we must take action against that. The problem is we've never done that much before.
Right.
So go to CSPOA.org, become a member of the CSPOA posse. That's $11 a month, or if you prefer, $99 a year, and that makes it like $850 a month. And you help us stay funded, and we train you to be part of the holy cause of liberty. And that's the call to action. This is the action plan. If you want to be part of the solution, instead of just hearers of the word, doers of the word, join us in this holy cause, because I will promise each and every one of you right now, I'll look you in the eye as best I can through this camera lens. I guarantee you that there's only about 2 or 3 peaceful and effective solutions left.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is Jesus Christ saving us.
Yeah.
But Almighty God is not going to save us if we're not trying to save ourselves. And we've got to get busy in saving our country, because we've gone to sleep and we've let the tyrants, especially the Democrats, take over our country. And that's got to stop. And we, the people, have got to stand together and take back our country and restore our Constitution.
I love the message. What about those sheriffs that I don't want to say push back, but maybe don't understand or haven't been? Have you guys contacted all of them, like around the country?
Well, in one way or another, to a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
Because like I had a reporter, his name was Craig from Detroit News, about 5 years, called me, and it was during an election. But it was local elections, so I don't know if it was a presidential year or not. But he said, Sheriff Mack, I've talked to you before a few years ago. I said, yeah, I remember, Greg. Thank you. He goes, I got to tell you, or I got to ask you, how have you done this? And I said, you got the better of me there, Craig. What have I done? He goes, I've been to several different sheriff election forums with all the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one told how they were going to be a constitutional sheriff. If they didn't bring it up in their opening,
mm-hmm.
then it was always asked by somebody in the audience. And all of them promised to be constitutional sheriffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, that's a great compliment. I didn't know that. But most of them, there's very few sheriffs that have to be pretty new that haven't heard about this movement and about what we're doing because of what he suggested. The citizens are bringing this up when they can.
Okay.
And we really push that, because the next thing is we want citizens to call their sheriff, email their sheriff, text their sheriff, and ask them if they're a constitutional sheriff. And I want you to do that in person. We want you to invite them to your neighborhood meeting and to your activist group meeting. And how about your pro Second Amendment group wants to have the sheriff come talk? They'll usually come.
Yeah.
And if not, then get a captain or undersheriff or somebody else to come, maybe even a deputy, and ask them what the departmental protocols are in protecting the Second Amendment. Folks, that's the big question right there. If the federal government, if Kamala Harris gets into office, or Newsom or whoever else hate guns, right, and they want to start a new door-to-door confiscation policy, what will your sheriff do? Mm-hmm. I've had some sheriffs answer completely wrong, and they think they're giving the right answer. Oh, I'll quit my job first. We don't want you to quit your job.
Right. Yeah.
We want you to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And sheriffs have saved the Second Amendment 2 or 3 times in the past 25 years, even against Obama. Mm-hmm. And sheriffs, hundreds of sheriffs signed on to a letter telling Obama that they were not going to tolerate any more federal intervention and interruption of the Second Amendment and going after law-abiding citizens in their jurisdictions. And the sheriffs use that word, tolerate. We will not tolerate that anymore. It stopped. You notice he didn't come after the guns. He threatened to several times. Biden threatened to several times. Mm-hmm. And again, sheriffs stood up. And then not only that, but our Supreme Court case in 1994, it stopped Brady Bills 2, 3, 4, and 5. There were 5 Brady bills scheduled to be passed. Our lawsuit saved the Second Amendment, because by the time number 5 was coming around, it was going to completely gut the Second Amendment and completely destroy federal firearms licensees nationwide. And they were going to tax and regulate ammunition out of existence.
Yep.
And they maintained that there's nothing you could do about ammunition because the Second Amendment didn't guarantee a right to keep and bear ammunition. So you see,
they'll try anything.
Folks, the sheriffs of this country have done more to save the Second Amendment than all the gun rights groups put together. And yeah, I love GOA. I love what the NRA did to help me on my case. Second Amendment Foundation, there's others, and then state associations. But the sheriffs have been the real boots on the ground in saving the Second Amendment the last 25, 30 years.
I think that is probably one of the biggest takeaways that people should have is the sheriff is period the head law enforcement officer for your county. There's no one above them. I've talked about this before personally. I've had the sheriff of my county on the show, and he said constitutional. The federal government basically has only the power that we allow them to have here. I'm paraphrasing.
Well, let's go over that. Let's go over his comment right there.
Okay.
Folks, do you know what powers were delegated to the federal government regarding law enforcement? Police powers. How many police powers were delegated to the new central government it's 5.
No, 5. Okay.
It's extremely limited.
Mm.
And they can't have more than 5, which would be wonderful if they would stick to those 5.
Right.
But let's go over them real quick here, okay?
Mm.
Treason, okay? That's a federal offense.
That tracks. Yeah.
It can be a state offense too, but it's a federal offense. Okay, we'll start with my thumb. 1, treason. 2, counterfeiting. That's a federal offense. Okay. 3, felonies committed on the high seas or piracies. The states do not patrol the high seas.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes sense.
So the Coast Guard does that, or some other federal agency, but that's theirs. And now, number 4, you're going to love Article 4, Section 4. The federal government is required to protect our borders from invasion.
Right. That's right.
Shall. And then number 5 is kind of innocuous, doesn't happen too often, but violations of treaties. So let's say we have a treaty with Canada. Somebody goes in there, violates that treaty. That's a federal offense. That's it. That's all they get. Okay. So where does the federal government have authority to intercede on drug trafficking? The border. The border. They're supposed to protect our borders from invasion. They can take action there. The rest of it belongs to the sheriffs and the states. Okay.
Interesting. So, yeah. So again, we talked about it before, the ever-growing size of government and expansion. But just like everything else, they will do whatever we let them get away with.
That is totally true. The states, what did Madison say? We can safely rely on the disposition of state legislatures to erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national government. And I'm going to tell you who's to blame for us allowing the federal government to steal and usurp authority. It's the Democrats and the Republicans. You know what happens? If the mayors and governors and other state officials don't do what the federal government says, or don't do what the Republican in office says, or the Democrat in office says, then they don't send them. Then their party doesn't send them money. They don't give them endorsements. They don't help them with their campaigns, and that becomes a political issue. And therein lies the bondage that Washington warned us about, the two-party system or any party system.
Right.
They have become more beholden and loyal to their parties than they are to the American people and our Constitution. And that political damage is almost irreparable. And we've got to change that. And we're right in the middle of writing a book again. I've got another book coming out with a fantastic national author by the name of Daniel Perkins. And he and I have put together a piece of work we believe is really going to change a lot of this. And are you ready for the title?
Yeah.
The Democrat Murder of America.
Okay. Okay. Definitely a provocative title. I'm sure people are going to lose their minds over it.
Yeah, we
I
want
won't
them
even
to,
be able to tell the
whatever it
title on
takes to get them to
YouTube.
read the book, because we do appeal to the good Democrats that are out there.
And they
That
exist.
you've got to. I don't care if look. I don't think it's ever going to be possible to vote the two-party system out.
Right. I don't either.
Because it would take members of the party to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Both parties. What are they going to do? Stop their own power? Stop their own money trail?
Mm-hmm.
But we the people can change all of this. Like, for instance, if one of your listeners right now goes to their sheriff and says, we've got to start erecting the barriers, and I want to know if you're a constitutional sheriff and what you're going to do to protect our Second Amendment. What are you going to do to protect our right to peaceably assemble? Well, we'll give you a permit. Why do you think you can permit something that's guaranteed in the Bill of Rights? So there's another good question. Yeah. But folks, you go to him and you tell him, I'm a member of the CSPOA. I love what they're doing. I'm not asking you, Sheriff, to be a member, because we don't ask sheriffs to be dues-paying members. What we want from the sheriff is that he keeps his oath of office, and we provide the training called the Constitution for Law Enforcement for him and his deputies and neighboring sheriffs and chiefs of police. We'll come there and do it.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's the only training like it in the entire country, because they don't do that training in police academies. They don't train about the Constitution. They train about case law. And okay, I'll come and train them about my case law.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll ask them, if there were 7 sheriffs who sued the federal government and you had a chance to read that case, that victory, wouldn't you want to know what it was about? Well, that's what we bring. We bring them. Yeah. Here it is. We bring it to you. We give it to you. And so right now, most sheriffs have heard very little about this case, and they certainly don't enforce it or obey it.
Right.
And this is the only time in 250 years where sheriffs won a case at the U.S. Supreme Court. Folks, you see how much work you have to do with your sheriff? And maybe we should do all that work, right? How do you expect me to talk to 3,086 sheriffs?
Right.
Every year, every month, every day. It's like herding cats, folks. And that's why it is vital to the cause of liberty that you're part of this solution.
I think that we have to do something, and this is the single, at least so far, this is the single best suggestion or group that I found that doesn't involve violence or just setting the whole thing on fire and burning it down, which I'm not in favor of. I believe our founding fathers gave an excellent system. We just have to use it properly.
We do not promote, we do not condone violence of any kind, and we never have.
Right.
And folks, this is a peaceful Is it bold? Yes. Just like the title of our book. Oh, and the subtitle is Demagoguery in the First Degree. So the Democrat Murder of America, and then right below that, Demagoguery in the First Degree.
And when do you expect that to come out?
We should have the ebook in about 10 days to 2 weeks.
Okay. Will that be available on CSPOA.org?
Yes. And I will make sure that we send it to all of our podcasters, such as yourself.
Awesome. I can't wait to read it.
We'll send it to you when it's ready to go. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Would you be okay with me doing a reading of it, or?
Yeah, you do what you want. Okay. Have me or Dan or both of us on your show.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've read some really, really positive things about you individually, but the case in general. And I really I hesitate to sound too, rabid about it, but people genuinely need to understand what a foundational case this was and how much it changed things, not only as far as gun rights, but also as far as the federal government's overreach into our lives.
That was the purpose of the case, federal overreach. And Scalia really redefines federalism, the division of power between the states and the federal government, immensely in this ruling. In fact, he said, we must pursue the question here and he calls us the Cleos. He called us the Cleos, the chief law enforcement officer. And so that's monumental in and of itself that they've identified the sheriffs as the Cleos. And then he says, but we must examine this whole question that the Cleos pose in a historical sense. And so he takes us through a history lesson. And that's why this thing, I totally agree with you, not just because it was my case and I started all this, but God started all this. And I just said, make me a tool in your hands, Lord. I'll help. And this miracle is exactly what you're calling it. It was such a miracle. And they've done their best to keep it hidden and to keep it away from the American people. And I feel like this lone voice in the wilderness now saying, folks, you've got to get this decision and you've got to be part of a peaceful and effective solution. And again, we're handing that to you on a silver platter. But this is the highlighted version of the case.
Okay.
And I put this together. Look, you can read this in 10 minutes. It's really small. But this is so powerful, folks. And this is a huge tool for what you were just saying, Dion, and that is for freedom. And every citizen should be passing these around to local officials. Mm-hmm. Give one to your sheriff, give one to the city council, mayor, county commissioners, your county attorney. Mm-hmm. I can't believe county attorneys will advise the sheriff that he doesn't have the authority to keep his own oath of office.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
Yeah,
and it's incredibly sad that we've gotten to such a point. I guess in our the fading of the stripes on our flag and our republic shaken to the core so much that people that are supposed to be advising, they're supposed to know the law, and they don't even understand the Bill of Rights.
And that's scary. It is because, first of all, do we understand where the Bill of Rights even came from and why they weren't originally in the original Constitution? And because they forgot, they really forgot. They got so wrapped up in the Connecticut Compromise and making sure that they had this bicameral legislature and making sure everything else was taken care of. Mm-hmm. They forgot about a Declaration of Rights. Mm-hmm. And you can see numerous examples of that in Old English law and history. You know, the Magna Carta and the rights of Englishmen of 1960 or of 1650 and others. The English were very good at identifying God-given rights. They just were never good at actually enforcing that. And that's a problem we're having now as well in our own country. But folks, the purpose of the Bill of Rights was to declare a list of rights that government could never touch. These are the rights that came from God. Mm-hmm. You cannot legislate about this. You cannot think about legislating these, and you cannot touch them. They are immovable, they are immutable, and they're irrefutable rights that cannot be touched by government. And after 20,000 gun control laws, you would think that they think it reads just the opposite.
Yeah.
And so, really but originally, when the founding fathers did get back together, after Madison called them back to work, all the founders were, and the state reps were called back, the state delegates. And at first, a few of them were upset. What do we got? You know, you guys know we did a perfect constitution, blood, sweat, and tears and prayer. And Madison said, listen, Samuel Adams and John Hancock contacted me and reminded me of something we failed to do. They go, what? We didn't fail. No, we failed. Where is the Declaration of Rights in our Constitution? And everybody agreed. Yeah, we need to do it. Do you know how many they came up with, Dion? 189.
Yeah, I knew it was a lot.
And then they finally, there was a lot of duplicity, and they dwindled them down to 12, and the states ratified 10, Now, how many rights are in those 10 amendments, though? There's 5 in number 1.
Yeah.
There's like 8, 9, or 10 in number 6. So it just depends on how you count things. Like in the 8th Amendment, is cruel and unusual punishment, is that 1 or is that 2? So you could count it either way. Okay.
Right.
So just depending on how you count it, there's about 28.
Okay.
Yeah. And they cannot be touched by government. And I will maintain, I've had people who disagree with this, but I will maintain that means state and local governments as well.
Oh, I agree. We
all took the same oath. We take the same oath to uphold and defend that Constitution. After that, the states have a lot of leeway and lots of regulatory authority. The federal government basically has none. The only regulatory authority the federal government has is the Commerce Clause. And they have stretched the hell out of that thing.
They certainly have, haven't they?
And so the Commerce Clause means interstate, not intrastate.
Right.
Commerce. And so anything crossing the line has a lot to do with the Indian reservations, and I don't even use that word anymore, Native American reservations. And Indian isn't a racist term. It's just incorrect. And I want to be historically correct about that.
Right.
Native American.
These people go nuts over the slightest little word, and it's like they're words. Like, get the meaning behind it, get the understanding of what people are talking about, and move on, because we argue over such little stuff like that. And if someone
like the Washington Redskins, you're so right. Washington Redskins, I don't care.
Right.
And nobody cared either until stupid people, the stupid politicians told them that, you shouldn't want the football team to be called Redskins. Why not? Who does that hurt?
Right.
That's just stupid.
Well, the funny thing is even Native Americans were petitioning for them to keep the name and just leave it alone. And then they changed it to the Commanders, and I guess the logo now has the Native Americans angry. So you guys succeeded in flipping it completely. Congratulations.
And the Cleveland Indians, they should have just said, well, we're not Indians, so we don't care if you call them Indians, Right. They're not Indians. They're not from India. So maybe the people from India wanted to change it, but no. This is just the stupidity of the Democrat Party. And that's why I pick on them the most. Because I know there's a lot of corrupt Republicans as well. And there's a lot of rhinos. But when you analyze both parties, it's very little comparison. It's very little. And yes, I do assail both parties for spending way too much money that we don't have, putting us into dangerous, catastrophic debt. Both support the IRS. Both have allowed funding for Planned Parenthood. And both have supported absolutely no complete ignorance in supporting the Federal Reserve being in charge of our money. Those 4 or 5 things right there are completely asinine for any government official to support. They're all criminal. They're all against the law. They're all against the Constitution. But after that, the sanctity of life, most Republicans get that. Hardly any Democrats do.
No.
Virtually none. Men and female sports. And election fraud and cheating.
Right.
That's really a Democrat baby. Sure, it sure is. And who wants illegals to come into our country and get them on the voter rolls? Democrats.
Right.
Who wants to keep them here? Even the murderers, rapists, and pedophiles and human traffickers and the cartels, who wants to keep them here? Democrats.
Right.
And now you know why we gave the title of the book the way we did.
Right. Right. So what is the long-term goal, and do you think it's achievable, of CSPOA?
Well, it's simply to make sure that the people of this country have at least one place, one person in government that they can turn to and trust and depend to protect them when government becomes venal and oppressive and criminal. There should be at least one.
Right.
Should there be more? Absolutely. And hopefully the sheriffs are working with other city police departments within their jurisdiction to make sure they're all on the same page, that we will not allow the Constitution to be violated or the rights of the people to be violated in this jurisdiction. If the chief of police does it and the sheriff goes to him and says, we're not going to go along with this, and if you're going to try to arrest somebody for mere possession of a gun, don't bring them to my jail.
Right.
And not only that, I will testify for that person in court that what you did was wrong. Well, I'm just upholding the law. No, you're not. The law is the Constitution.
Right.
And the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. Please show me any traffic code or criminal code in this state that supersedes our Constitution. And then the sheriff now becomes an instructor and a teacher for this chief of police. But they should be communicating every month, and I did that when I was sheriff. Yeah. I met with all the chiefs of police in my county once a month. We had lunch together, and we went over anything and everything. We kept the lines of communication open, and we also allowed the sergeant of the local highway patrol, and he was stationed there in our county, and he was invited as well. And so we kept communications open, and that's key to all of this, folks. When the IRS or the FBI or EPA or USDA or FDA and on and on and on come into your county and violate your rights, your sheriff should be the one you can turn to for peace, safety, protection, and liberty. Our job is to protect civil rights. Should Rosa Parks have been arrested for not giving her seat to a white man? Of course not. How ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And the sheriff should have stopped it and intervened and make sure that did not happen. He should do the same thing for tax protesters today, for gun rights people today. And how about this? Amish farmers who don't pasteurize their milk. Do you know how many of those have gone to prison and lost their homes and lost their livelihoods because of stupid government, including the FDA, putting Sam Gerard, an Amish farmer from Kentucky, in prison for 6 years? Now, folks, we can't have this anymore.
Right.
The worst thing that a government can do is support the killing of babies and putting innocent people in prison.
Yeah.
Those are the two worst things. And we've got to stand against it. And I hope that our book will be strong enough to wake a lot of Democrats up, that they'll say, you know, it's time to stand hand in hand with fellow Americans and defend the principles of liberty that America was founded upon. That's what we're asking. That's our solution. That's our goal.
And it's absolutely laudable. I'm actually going to look more into it. After I didn't want to do too much because I didn't want to talk over you or try to jump in on knowing everything about it. I knew a little bit about the organization,
sure,
but I'm actually super excited to become a member and check it out.
Well, when you do, make sure you tell everybody on your list here and spread it to your email list. It's time for all of us to do this. And we had more 2 years ago. During COVID, people were scared and they were really joining us. Since COVID, our numbers have gone way down, and we really need to build that back up. We need hundreds of thousands of people on board with this. Mm-hmm. And we don't even have 5 right now. And so, folks, be a part of the solution. Let that sink in. There is a peaceful and effective solution.
I think that's the big thing that people kind of get stuck on is they're paralyzed by, there's all these different voices, right? You got the sovereign citizens, you got these people talking about I don't know, like, take back your government via this way, take back your government via that way. But the unassailable fact is that the county sheriff is an untouchable position, and they are in charge of your county, legally speaking.
And you know, Dion, I haven't found one of those groups, the sovereign citizen or freedom citizen or freedom groups or tax or whatever, who disagree that the sheriff is not the key to all of this. They all say he is.
Yep.
All of them.
All of them. all of them, because it is outlined in the Constitution. And for all the, all the misunderstandings and the I guess improper readings or translations of this or that, the one thing that never changes is the sheriff. The sheriff being the top dog, legally speaking, or at least law enforcement speaking, in your county. And the federal government will only come in and do. State government as well can only come in as much as the sheriff lets them.
Yeah. And it's true. And I love it when a chief of police I'll be talking to will say, well, we all should know that the top authority in the county is the sheriff. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I appreciate you saying that. It doesn't demean your position at all.
Right.
But the sheriff is the only elected one. And so therein lies his power. The chief of police is a bureaucrat. He's appointed by another committee or town council. Mm-hmm. He understands. Mm-hmm. He's still a cop. He still has his certification. And the sheriff doesn't try to go tell him what to do. But should they be working together? Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And often they do. Here in LaPorte County, but that's because you have two cities. One's very blue, one's very red. The sheriff happens to be a very Constitution-loving Republican at the moment. Thank God. So I don't know. I know that the previous administration, recently there was a change in one of the cities and the chief of police. So I don't know how they're currently doing, but there for a while they were doing exactly what you said. They would get together and keep everyone informed, and everyone understood that the sheriff was the authority, and everyone kind of looked to him. Like I said, I'm not sure how it's going now with the changes in the administrations, but ultimately we the people can't. No one's coming to save us. No one's going to magically. Even Trump. I'm a huge Trump fan. He's not perfect. There's a lot of stuff he does and says that I don't necessarily agree with. But even he can't fix everything. He can only do federal stuff. Right. We have to fix it in our area.
Folks, no matter who's president of the United States, and Trump maybe has another 2.5 years. We sure hope he has those. But he could be rendered pretty impotent in this year's election. Mm-hmm. And that's vital. But I am grateful that he got elected. I donated to his campaign. And I totally supported him. Am I disappointed in some of the things he's done? A few. And I have a to-do list. He needs to abolish the IRS, abolish the Federal Reserve, make sure there's never funding for Planned Parenthood from taxpayer dollars.
Right.
That should never happen. That is a crime. That is a crime. They are a private organization. They have nothing to do with government.
No.
Okay. So that's why it's a crime. Why don't they fund my organization?
Right.
Yeah. I would never ask them to. But to make a point, I might ask them to. Why do you fund Planned Parenthood and you don't fund a group that defends civil rights for all sheriffs? We enforce the Constitution. What you don't want that? And so, but it's very simple that we keep the federal government out where they should stay out. And I really hope that the new AG for the Department of Justice will be going after corrupt public officials. And right now they are doing an investigation on the corruption of voter fraud in Maricopa County, is where I live right now in Arizona. So
yeah, I did see that. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and that's what people truly need to understand, in my opinion, is that the things that you see, the things that they tell you are going on, there's a reason they're telling you about these things versus some of the other things. I went on the DOJ website the other day, and if you plug in the keyword crimes against children or human trafficking, like almost every day there are multiple arrests. So things are happening. It's just, do you think CNN is going to tell you that Trump is actually going after actual bad guys?
No, they're going to continue to promote their bed partners, the Democrats, right, and do whatever they can to support the Democrats. And it has gotten so stupid that it's almost criminal.
Yeah.
And the protection of the American people guaranteed in the First Amendment, mm-hmm, the right to freedom of speech and the right of the freedom of the press. Mm-hmm. Freedom of the press has been completely bastardized and destroyed. Oh. We no longer have that protection.
I agree.
Only through podcasts and other alternative media. Right. You're not going to get it with the mainstream media, CBS, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, probably the worst one of all. Yeah. And lots of different newspapers, lots of different radio shows and networks that are just completely bought off by the Democrat Party. They are partners in crime. Democrats and media are partners in crime, in destroying our Constitution.
Wholeheartedly agree. Listen, I really, truly appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else that you think people really should know before we, or at least before I dig into more onto the website and learn more? And
one other thing, I want to make sure people understood what you brought up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And that is, what have sheriffs done? What is our goal? And I call it the tale of two sheriffs. In Florida, where we have 67 very good sheriffs, and 66, the Democrats, even the rhinos, all got together with Governor DeSantis and said, yes, we want to get rid of the criminals brought in by the Biden administration. Mm-hmm. Okay. They're all cooperating with ICE. Mm-hmm. In Minnesota, they're doing just the opposite. You want to see where it really helps to have sheriffs working together? Look at Florida, look at Texas, and then look at the horrible examples of Chicago and New York. But the worst one, Minnesota. Oh, yeah. Okay. Look at it yourself. Mm-hmm. But then there was a sheriff in Florida who arrested a pastor for having church. He arrested Pastor Rodney Howard Brown for simply conducting church in the United States of America, where this should never happen. Mm-hmm. But the sheriff was all proud of it. His name was Chad Cronister. On the other hand, we had a sheriff in New Mexico, Sheriff Glenn Hamilton, who did just the opposite. And a pastor came to him by the name of Caleb Cooper. And he said, Sheriff, I just want you to know something. The government does not run my church. Jesus Christ runs my church, and I will not close down. What I need to know from you, sir, is what you will do to protect me and our church and our congregation to keep our church open and make sure that we are not harassed by government. Mm-hmm. And Sheriff Hamilton's next words should ring across this country. If it takes having to go to jail myself, I will do everything in my power to protect you and your congregation and keep you open. So they're open. Yeah. And here came the state police to shut them down. The sheriff was there. He came out and tactfully and friendly, amiably confronted them. Mm-hmm. And he told them in no uncertain terms that this church and congregation were under his authority, and that, get this, he had deputized everyone in that church, and thus they were under his authority, and they will remain open. The state police left and never came back, and Pastor Cooper kept that church open every Sunday, every single second, because he had a sheriff that had the guts to be creative and courageous and do his job. Now, folks, I'll leave you with this. Which sheriff do you want in your county and your community? That is what we do at the CSPOA, and we can't do it without you. Join us.
Right. That is an incredibly powerful story, and it should resonate with all of us. Just in the last few years, guys, we've seen this, and it really reinforces the need again, thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate your time.
We'll talk soon. Thank you, Dion.
Sounds good. Look, ladies and gentlemen, the reality is our way of life is under attack, whether we want it to be or not. We can talk about why it's going on. We can talk about who's responsible. We can talk about all these things, but it's the conversation should really be, how do we fix it? Because how it happened is much less important than how we can return it. So I'm going to check into this. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to sign up, and I'll let you guys know how it goes, because I've looked at the whole sovereign citizen things. I've looked at a lot of this stuff. You guys have been on the journey with me. If you've watched the show for several years, you know I've looked into many of these, for everything from tinfoil hat to mainstream media coverage stuff, and some of it makes sense. Some of it doesn't. Some of it, you just get to the end of the road and you're like, unfortunately, these people mean well, but they're confused. Which of these, I know one thing, at least this guy comes with authority. There's a Supreme Court case on his side that lends credence to everything the man says. It's not an interpretation. It's the reality. I mean, as I stated at the beginning, and I don't think it's an overstatement to say 10th Amendment hero, Second Amendment savior, because the Brady Bill, guys, the Brady Bill's expiration is why you can own an AR again, or I should say you can go buy one. You could own one before, but getting them was. Anyway, I appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen. As always, God bless you, God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you again soon. Good night.
Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.